Are the San Francisco 49ers really going to trade quarterback Trey Lance? Well, it appears they are at least listening to offers, and teams are making it known that they want to come after Trey Lance potentially and make a trade, whether before the draft, on the draft. And we're going to talk about all of it, the realities of it. Does it make sense for the San Francisco 49ers to do this? Will they do it? Oh, there's a whole lot to unpack, and we are going to get into it all right after this. But you already know, drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button. It's smoke season, baby. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Oh boy, what a way to wake up this morning. To be able to find out that the San Francisco 49ers have been fielding calls on the potential of trading for Trey Lance. And of course, in typical San Francisco 49ers fashion, it has created quite the buzz and stir because this has been something that we have been talking about what feels like nonstop for the past 3 years. So why not? Let's attack this topic. Let's unpack what Ian Rapaport said. Let's look at the incoming draft class, the value involved, and let's break this thing down and talk about the realities of Trey Lance potentially getting traded. The reality, will it happen? Is this just smoke? But hey, that's why the smoke chasers are here to unpack it all. Let's get right into it. Let's break down the report from Rap Sheet, okay? Let's get into that. Let's look at what he said that sparked all these conversations. So the original tweet says, sources, the 49ers have received inquiries from several teams looking into the potential trade for former number 3 overall pick. The San Francisco 49ers traded 2 first-rounders and a pick swap and a third for this number 3 overall pick quarterback in Trey Lance. The conversations have been the result of SF fielding the calls, not making them, with teams aware that Brock Purdy is likely the future starter. And then Ian quote tweets his tweet and says, while no trade is imminent, and the 49ers would almost certainly want to make sure Brock Purdy's rehab continues to go as smoothly as it's been going, the interest from other teams in Lance has been there. First of all, we're going to get into the meat of all of this. We're going to get into the meat of what Ian Rapaport is saying because, again, it's a conversation around trading Trey Lance. So we're going to talk about that in depth today. I'll start off by saying this. I don't believe it's a good idea to trade Trey Lance. I think that when you make that decision to trade that capital, arguably one of the biggest draft day trades in history, to move up to number 3 and select Trey Lance, and here we are 3 years later, coming off a broken ankle, and the San Francisco 49ers are at minimum listening to offers on Trey Lance potentially to trade him. I don't love that because to me, I don't imagine you're going to get the highest possible value in return because of all the circumstances that have come along with it. You're getting a quarterback who's had 4 starts in his career. He's had multiple injuries. He's already been tagged with the injury prone label. He's coming off 2 surgeries to repair his broken ankle that happened week 2. And now we're potentially talking about trading him. I don't like that concept in of itself. But the San Francisco 49ers don't care about what I like, and rightfully so. What they care about is building the best team in which they see fit and recouping any value for any players that have a future with this team or don't. So we understand what it is. At the end of the day, it's a business. I'm going to remove any feelings out of this and speak of this from a logical standpoint of how I perceive the San Francisco 49ers moving forward with this trade Trey Lance conversation. And so let's talk about, we'll pick apart Ian's quote or his tweets first. And I'll say this 100%. This is an extremely specifically worded report. It is specifically meant to say that the San Francisco 49ers aren't shopping Trey. They are receiving calls, and very specifically adamant about that language. To me, this is definitely where the smoke starts filling up the nose and starts like, okay. Like, I think it would have been more believable if it was just the San Francisco 49ers are just fielding calls. Like, they are receiving trade interest on Trey Lance. I think, when you start to really go in depth into they are not, not making them, it just feels like this is kind of blowback control. Because as we know, this is a very tricky situation for the things that I've laid out. Trading Trey Lance after you've given up so much draft capital to go and get him, and then you're already looking to move off of him from a fan base that honestly has never gotten a fair shot to even be able to evaluate what Trey Lance is. Obviously, the 49ers have. They see him every day. They see his practice reps. They know what Trey Lance is, much more than the fan base or the outside media would understand. So I recognize that. They have a much better grasp of what Trey Lance is and his fit with this team. But just the way this is worded, it just feels like this pure speculation. I don't know. It just feels like this is coming from the San Francisco 49ers to let everyone know that there are teams that are interested. And if you're interested as well, the draft is coming up in about a week. Throw your hat into the ring and let's see what we can potentially get done. The San Francisco 49ers have made it clear they like Brock Purdy a lot. The locker room likes Brock Purdy a lot. And it feels like they are willing to move forward with Brock Purdy as the eventual starter. And they bring in Sam Darnold. And again, one of the first things that I said about Sam Darnold being signed is don't be surprised if Sam Darnold makes some noise. Not only because Kyle has shown that he does like Sam Darnold quite a bit and has for some time, but Sam Darnold has proven that there's still talent. The talent is still there. It's just being able to ramp up the processing part of his game and being efficient in that regard. So if they truly feel that comfortable with Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy coming back from injury, that does potentially make Trey Lance a little bit expendable, maybe in their eyes, especially if they've seen enough of Trey to understand that this just isn't a good fit. So again, at the end of the day, just kind of working through Ian's report, this to me feels like the San Francisco 49ers are absolutely willing to trade Trey Lance. Like, not that they're just taking calls, that they're definitely willing. Like, they want to do it at the right price, which again is good business, and I approve of that. I approve of the San Francisco 49ers trying to drum up value, trying to get this conversation going. Again, it's all starting to align with the San Francisco 49ers saying that Brock Purdy is the clubhouse leader. You look at the money that they gave to Sam Darnold, which looks like Sam Darnold is potentially going to play based on the incentives built into his contract. And then Trey Lance, kind of where Trey Lance is at and where he's working, and that continued relationship, which doesn't seem to be going. in the right direction. It just feels like the San Francisco 49ers are open for business in regards to Trey Lance. So that's my takeaway. That is my takeaway from what Ian Rapaport put out today, that the San Francisco 49ers are open 100% to trading Trey Lance, but they have to craft it in a way that they're not like, it's not, the nuance here is they got hit with an offer that they couldn't refuse. They had to accept it. And that's how you kind of can explain it to the fan base, opposed to, listen, maybe internally they see some things that we don't. They know some things that we don't. And they've decided internally that they have good options to move on from. And it's time to see if they can recoup some value for Trey Lance to be able to help put this team in a position to compete for championships, because you're not going to be able to do that with 3 quarterbacks. So, well, with the 49ers, maybe because of how many injuries they've had. But to me, this feels like it's being messaged and packaged in a way that, again, makes sense to me from a marketing standpoint, from a PR standpoint, from a image standpoint. The 49ers have to be very, very careful with how they go about potentially trading Trey Lance, because attached to Trey Lance is the biggest draft day trade in recent memory. So it's not just moving on from the number 3, it's moving on from what you invested, the investment of Trey Lance, the return on investment that hasn't been there. And how do you explain that to a passionate fan base who loves this team? A lot of fans really like Trey Lance and want to see Trey Lance successful. So how do you package this to kind of make it less of a blow to the fan base? So that's the way that I'm reading this. And again, don't forget, after the owners' meetings, Ian Rapaport talked about the San Francisco 49ers quarterback position and omitted, completely omitted Trey Lance as a potential starter for week 1. Didn't even mention his name. Probably because they know kind of behind the scenes that this is kind of where it's been heading. We've heard reports that, the San Francisco 49ers and the Vikings were having conversations back at the combine about potentially trading Lance. So this just feels like it's been in the works for a while. I'm not blindsided by this whole thing. Like, this makes a lot of sense to me with the way everything has been going. Like, I'm not at all blindsided by this at all. And I won't be blindsided if they ultimately trade Lance. Justin, appreciate the super chat, brother. Says maybe they're scared Trey is injury prone and they're trying to get what they can before they risk him getting injured again and his value is even lower. Look at what they went through with Jimmy. I agree. This feels like a value. This feels like a value move. They're trying their hardest, I believe, to potentially recoup as much value as they can. And when you look at this particular draft class, and I put out a tweet earlier ranking Trey Lance with this incoming class, and I have Trey Lance ranked as the 4th quarterback in this class. And the reason I have him ranked 4th, because he's not a clean prospect. He's been in the NFL going into his 3rd season, has had injuries every time he's played in a game, and the team that traded multiple first-round draft picks to go get him is seemingly ready to move off of him. So that goes into my rankings. But even still, with putting that nuance into my rankings against this current quarterback class, it comes down to, I still think Trey Lance is a better prospect than Will Levis. Like, Will Levis is getting top 15 hype. I think Will Levis is a bigger project than Trey Lance. So if a team is willing to spend a top 15 pick on Will Levis, well, why wouldn't they be willing to spend potentially something in that range for Trey Lance? I think he's younger than Will Levis. there's still that raw intangible to what Trey Lance has in regards to his development and his growth. So maybe what this whole situation is trying to gauge his value while there's still time to recoup value. Because if Trey Lance rides the bench all year and doesn't play, or he plays and gets injured yet again, his value is just going to go down. So if the San Francisco 49ers feel confident enough that Trey Lance isn't going to be the quarterback of the future for the San Francisco 49ers, and they feel that's going to be Brock Purdy, then yes, I do feel that they are scared of potential more injuries. They are scared of losing additional value because as fans, we get hyper focused on the productivity of the players. We get hyper focused on the fandom of these players, but we are in business season. This is the time of the year where you are treating these guys as assets. You're treating them as valuable pieces that can be moved, whether you get something in return or you move off of a depreciating asset. Well, I don't think Trey is a depreciating asset right now, but if he gets hurt again and he flames out again, and I don't know if you're going to be able to get a whole lot from Trey Lance. I think there's still some intrigue into the unknown of what Trey Lance is. And you get the videos of him throwing with Patrick Mahomes and all that type of stuff, then maybe there is something to that. But yeah, I agree that this is a value conversation. They're playing with the idea of trying to get as much value in return because let's face it, they spent a lot to get Trey Lance, and for it right now to turn into what it is, I really do believe the 49ers are trying to get the potentially best value possible for Trey Lance. Jesse Wade says this shouts commitment to Brock Purdy. How do we salvage the assets given up? We need to recoup as many assets as possible. Let's go get a 2 and a 3. And again, that comes back to the conversation is how do these teams rank Trey Lance against the incoming class? The thing that the incoming class has going for them is they're clean prospects. They don't have this history in the NFL where teams can look back and pick apart. That's what I think Trey Lance is up against when he's being measured against this upcoming class. But still, even in that regard, where Trey Lance is, definitely has some battle scars, and things in that regard, he would still, in my opinion, be a top 5 quarterback in this class. Again, I think Bryce Young right now is the clubhouse leader for being the number 1 quarterback in this class. I think that's what the Panthers are ultimately going to do. I think they're going to be blown away by the personal traits. They're going to be blown away by the intangibles. I know he's shorter, but he can get the job done. I think Bryce Young, with what he's done at Alabama in the SEC, I think the Panthers ultimately feel like that's the lowest risk and also potentially the high. Like, I think it's really going to come down to Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is one of the most amazing quarterback prospects that we've ever seen come out of the draft from an athletic standpoint, what he can do throwing the ball. He just needs to develop the other aspects of his game. But from everything that we've heard, he's scored very high in the S2 testing. He has all the intangibles and the traits to want to improve and get better and does good work. Again, I talked to his quarterback coach before he tested at the combine, and he's like, this guy has it all. He has, and all the perceived knocks on him can be explained. So I have Anthony Richardson really high. Right now, I would say CJ Stroud and Trey Lance are kind of tied. Like, I think CJ Stroud is decent. I think he's worthy of being a top 10 pick. But I also think you can make the case that maybe CJ Stroud and Trey Lance are kind of on the same playing field. I think Trey Lance right now, if you had to take Trey Lance, his injury history, obviously what it appears like he is falling out of the San Francisco 49ers favor, with all that stuff in consideration and the fact that he's coming off a broken ankle, I still think he's a better prospect than Will Levis. So this is how this is where I'm trying to determine, how do you value, or how do other teams value Trey Lance? Because if this is where, let's say they slotted Trey Lance and they're running this exercise, does that mean maybe the San Francisco 49ers could get a late first, maybe a couple second and thirds? And at that point, do the San Francisco 49ers feel comfortable enough with the quarterback room that they have to get some value from Trey Lance, who clearly doesn't feel like he has a future with the San Francisco 49ers, and just move on? So that's what this whole situation is about. And obviously, I don't love the idea of trading Trey Lance. I don't love what it represents, but I also understand the process behind it. I understand the need for value. I also understand if they've determined that he just isn't a fit. I also understand that. I also understand that if they really do like Brock Purdy, and I really do think they've seen enough of Sam Darnold on tape where they feel really comfortable with Sam Darnold. So if they really do feel that comfortable with those two quarterbacks, and they have the ability to go recoup some decent value for Trey Lance, I understand that as well. That also brings back into play the San Francisco 49ers doing a ton of work on Dorian Thompson Robinson. The UCLA quarterback has had formal meetings at the combine, has had a private workout with the 49ers, and was in Santa Clara this last weekend for a top 30 visit. So it's all making sense, right? I think if you've followed kind of what I've thought about this particular situation, I know it's in the back of the head. I know, like, I don't agree with it, but I also understand that I don't have a lot of the information that the San Francisco 49ers have. I'm not in that locker room. I'm not in the coaching rooms watching tape back and understanding like how Trey Lance truly fits. At this point in time, everyone out here speculating on Trey Lance's fit with the San Francisco 49ers is exactly that. It's pure speculation. Like, we don't truly know how the San Francisco 49ers feel internally. All we can really do at this particular stage in time is react to their actions, and their actions it seems abundantly clear that they don't see a fit with Trey Lance as a future quarterback, and especially with the emergence of Brock Purdy. You like it it just doesn't feel like it's in the cards. Like, you just have Trey Lance, you know, fighting for reps behind Jimmy Garoppolo, and you knew that there was a divide between the internal locker room of who they were going to pick as their leader, and they all picked Jimmy Garoppolo. But then you have the sandwich on the back end. Then Trey Lance gets hurt, and Brock Purdy comes in. Now the whole locker room's like, we like Brock Purdy. So we have two examples of the locker room picking against Trey Lance. So connect the dots, man. Connect the dots. It's not something that I love to see. It's not something, again, uh it all comes back to the draft day trade. It all comes back to giving up that capital to go up and get Trey Lance, and the uncertainty already that they had. We understand, the reports came out. The San Francisco 49ers called on Aaron Rodgers on draft night. On draft night. So that to me tells me right there that they weren't sold totally on the guy that they were going to get. So they took him, and there was some glimpses that it was going to turn out well, but fortunately it didn't. and it doesn't appear that it's getting any better. So it's a tough situation to be in, especially with all the conversations that we've had about this and the way that it continues to progress. Tia says Kyle and Lynch better be right on Brock, because if they are wrong, both of them need to be fired. This will be two quarterbacks they choose in Air, Jimmy, and Purdy. I I still disagree with the firing sentiment. I don't believe their I guess I'll call it inability to land on a franchise quarterback, uh, a fireable offense, because admittedly, they've built the entire roster phenomenally well. They've built staffs phenomenally well. There's much more to being a good head coach and a good general manager than just production on the field. Obviously, that's what we judge them off of, and ultimately at the end of the day, that's what gets these guys paid. That's what gets them jobs. So I'm not saying that that's not important, but I'm also saying there are other aspects to what they do really well. It just is uh, unfortunate that the most important position in football seems to be the one that is escaping the San Francisco 49ers the most since Kyle and John took over. So I don't think it's a fireable offense. However, I do understand that if you're upset about the 49ers potentially trading Trey Lance, oh, I understand that. Um, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still, admittedly so, I really wanted Justin Fields. And nothing against Trey Lance either. But at the end of the day, like, it just appears that it's not working out. And, if yeah, you want them to be right on Brock. You want them to, and I think they are right on Brock. I think Brock really showed a lot last year, and he also showed that he can improve. I don't think Brock is a proven product. I think Brock is still a bit of a developing quarterback. He was a rookie last year, so Brock has the potential to get better in regards to processing, timing, and all that type of stuff. Like, he can get better. I mean, when I had Brandon Ayuk on the channel, he said the same thing. He was like, "We were watching rookie Brock Purdy. We were watching rookie Brock who got thrown into the fire and did what he did." Imagine Brock Purdy going into his second year with a full offseason program to be able to understand already what the NFL is and then be able to build on top of what he already did. So I really do believe that Brock can get better and can improve, and they're I think they have seen enough. I've seen enough to feel comfortable with Brock. I've seen enough, and I do think Brock will get better. Um, but what we are concerned about now is his arm, right? Is his arm good to go? That's where the concerns come from. I don't think the concerns come from, is Brock Purdy capable of being the quarterback? I think he's proven he's capable. I think he's proven he's more than capable of being the starter. It's how well will he bounce back off of the injury. And Brian is saying he thinks that this is also a sign that Purdy's recovering well. And I have to agree a little bit with that. I think, again, I think it would be a mistake to go into a season with one healthy veteran quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if you're just going into this year with Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy maybe starts the year on PUP, you trade Trey Lance and you draft a Jake Hayner or Dorian Thompson Robinson, a Tanner McKee, a Clayton Tune. You get one of these guys in the third, fourth, fifth round, and you have a veteran in Sam Darnold, and you have a rookie, and then you have Brock Purdy coming off UCL. I don't love it. It makes me a little bit nervous, but I also do think that they feel confident. I know that situation came out with that Yahoo article about Brock Purdy's status. I think Brock Purdy is much better than that report kind of came off. I think what Brock was saying was more about setting expectation than anything else and taking it one day at a time, as he said multiple times. But I do think Brock is is going to be what is going to be good. I think he'll be in a good spot. So I do think it also does point to Purdy is on his way back, and they do feel really confident in Brock Purdy. But now this opens up the door. So if I don't feel comfortable potentially with the San Francisco 49ers going into the start of the year with Sam Darnold starter, potentially Brock Purdy, maybe on PUP. That's just maybe. That's like I would say the worst case scenario is he starts on PUP, doesn't play the first 4 games, and returns. The hope is that he will be able to be back by week 1, but it's still TBD. We don't know. Do the San Francisco 49ers pick up the phone? Do they call Tom Brady? Do they pick up the phone? Do they call Aaron Rodgers again? The Aaron Rodgers trade isn't done. And we heard from the owner himself of the New York Jets that hearing that Aaron Rodgers was 90% retired heading into his darkness retreat has really impacted the negotiations for trading for Aaron Rodgers. So does that make Aaron Rodgers potentially available? The 39-year-old quarterback that is, he's a good quarterback. He's a great quarterback. But you know enough about Aaron Rodgers. Does that become an option? What are the options? What are the options? Feels like everything is on the table at this point. That's what I'm taking from this. Again, I understand what the Ian Rapaport situation is and what he's doing, and I understand it for the organization as well. But for us as fans to understand and be able to like, this is what happens before a move is made. Like these are the types of tweets from insiders that come out before something happens. And I do think it's ironic that from what I've heard from multiple people, and again, I'm not positive on this, which is why I haven't posted about it. But from my understanding, Trey Lance had the San Francisco 49ers in his Instagram bio, and he removed that a couple days ago. So does that align? Does that kind of align with this timing? Does it kind of align with these ongoing situations that we know the San Francisco 49ers are extremely upfront with these guys, right? They're going to tell them, they're going to have these conversations to be able to discuss like, hey, listen, we're going to explore trading you. Well, what does a 22, 23-year-old do? He changes his social media. That's what they do. That's the world we live in, ladies and gentlemen. It's the world we live in. So it's one piece of the puzzle. It's one piece of the puzzle. You don't have to care about it, but just understand 22 and 23-year-olds, oh, they care about social media. And when they do something on social media, oh yeah, it means a lot. It means a lot. Don't get it twisted. Do not get it twisted at all. So something that we will continue to watch, something that we will continue to monitor. It's a pretty wild ride. Corey Soto says, I don't care what anyone says if Lance is traded. This is one of the worst institutional failures in Niners history, and I'm not doing that for Purdy, who is nowhere close to the top quarterbacks in the league. Hashtag what's faithful. So again, it's a hard bridge to cross as a fan, right? Because we live in a world where we're fans of these players. I'm a fan of the players, man. I'm a player advocate. I want to see the best for these players. I want to see these players get paid. I want them to be taken care of. You know what I mean? Like, I want good things to happen for these guys. And this particular situation is just, again, it's ongoing. It's been nonstop, and there have been a lot of questions, and it's just crazy because you can kind of track the questions all the way back to, like, it might seem trivial, but not putting Trey Lance in your like opening day marketing, like, it just, again, it started from the jump, like the messaging, the optics of it all, and it's just like we as fans have been forced to sift through, and forcing this fan base to sift through a quarterback situation like that, understanding the way the discourse has been around Jimmy Garoppolo prior to that, again, like, I understand that the San Francisco 49ers aren't doing anything for the fans necessarily. They're going to build their roster. They're going to build their roster to build their roster. They literally don't care about the fans in that regard, and that's should be the way it should be. They why I'm not checking Johnny 3797 to see if he agrees if we should trade Trey Lance or not. That's just not how it works. But that is that is an aspect to this that it's a layer. It's a layer, and it's a wild one at that. Uh so it'll be interesting, but I'm not going to be surprised by it. I'm not going to be taken off guard by it. I'm prepared. I'm prepared for it. Justin says if they internally think Darnold might beat out Trey, wouldn't it make more sense for them to get, I don't know, an early second and grab BJ Ojolari, Will McDonald, Mozzie Smith before Trey value takes a hit? 100%. 100%. That's why I said from the very beginning, man, like, guys, you can't sleep on Sam Darnold. I know Sam Darnold has a bad rap, and this is coming from a guy who called him a bust pre-draft. I called Sam Darnold a bust. I said this guy's going to be trash because he's a bad processor. I never once talked poorly about his arm talent, his athletic ability, but again, he's entering a system where a lot of that processing is baked into the plan, baked into the play. All Sam has to do is master the scheme and play within scheme. He doesn't have, like, everything is determined. That's what Kyle is. Kyle has everything predetermined down to the steps, the singular step. All Sam has to do is fit into that. He just has to execute it. That's the beauty of why Sam and Kyle fit well together, because you're not asking Sam Darnold to go out here and figure it out on his own. It's actually the opposite. It's the opposite of that. It's do what Kyle says, throw where Kyle says to throw it. And that's what will make Sam Darnold potentially be successful, because Sam Darnold has talent. And so if you take the talent and Kyle's processing ability and you merge the two together, that's where Sam can be successful. And to Justin's point, what is Trey's value if he comes out and has a poor training camp? Sam Darnold beats him. Trey rides the bench. Brock Purdy comes back. Brock Purdy takes over. And Trey Lance isn't even active on game days. Like, what does the value look like then? And that's, I think, where we're at. Is if there's a world that exists where week 8, Trey Lance is inactive, that in of itself will hurt his value a ton. Wouldn't you say? right? Kind of like what Justin's talking about. Like, wouldn't you say that? Like, I know Justin made this point on a video like a week ago, and right now it makes even more sense. It makes even more sense. Like, because that's where we're at right now. We are in the value process of the offseason. These are business moves being made. This isn't football. There's no football being played. There's no one going out onto the field in between the white lines and producing. That's not where we're at. We are at the process of the year where every individual one of these players is an asset in a spreadsheet with a number attached to it and a value attached to it. And the San Francisco 49ers are going to try to recoup the best possible value per any player, let alone what's going to happen with Trey Lance. So we're going to find out, man. We're going to find out. And if, again, the 49ers don't feel justified with Trey Lance as being that guy, then it probably makes sense in a draft where you don't have a first or a second round draft pick. And this team is built to win now. We know that. So why not go try to get something for a guy who might not contribute, right? And could potentially lose value. So it's gonna be fascinating. But I agree with Justin. Like, this is the value that you have to try to recoup. Corey Soto says, when are we going to admit the Niners aren't going to win a chip with a system quarterback? They're not. Look at those superstar quarterbacks in the NFC. I hear you, Corey. I do. Trust me, I hear you. But I also can't look past the fact that in 2019, the San Francisco 49ers were 10 minutes away with a system quarterback. The definition of a system quarterback, the definition of a limited system quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. It's possible. Like, it might not put you in the top tier category of competing all the time with your Josh Allens and your Mahomes and your Burrows and your Lamar Jacksons. It might not put you in that top category, but yes, we lost. Of course we lost. But there was the potential of doing it with a guy who had never played a full season at quarterback. Like, they can do it. If they made some better decisions later on in that game, the San Francisco 49ers probably win. I'm not making excuses for why they lost, but you can't omit that season, and you can't omit that game. And you can't, especially when you're talking about this, like, the San Francisco 49ers have went to 3 NFC championships in the last 4 years with quote unquote system quarterbacks. That's why I don't necessarily believe this. Of course, getting elite tier quarterback, a superstar quarterback, is going to push you over the top. Of course, 150%. But I also don't believe that you are incapable of winning it all. Does it make it harder? Yes. Does it play a factor into the overall success? Of course. But look at what the San Francisco 49ers have. They've shown us time and time again. Now, we can't even talk about last year because we don't know. That's the messed up problem with Brock Purdy going down in the NFC Championship game, is who knows what that game would have been. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows what happens if the San Francisco 49ers make it to the Super Bowl? Who knows? Who knows what happens if Kowalski doesn't drop that pick and the San Francisco 49ers go to play the Bengals, who they had already beaten earlier in the year with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback? Who knows? We don't know. But what we do know is the San Francisco 49ers have found success with system quarterbacks. That doesn't mean that's going to put them in the best case scenario to win it all, but we can't omit that they've had success with system quarterbacks. So I understand what you're saying, Corey. And Corey, I love you, man. You're one of my favorites. And you always bring questions and you always bring points that make us think and they make us talk. And again, we don't all have to agree on this. Like, I agree with your thought process. If you have a superstar quarterback, the 49ers are going to have the best chance ever to win the Super Bowl with this stacked roster. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And we have seen a scenario where the San Francisco 49ers have had Jimmy Garoppolo. They have had Brock Purdy. They've had 3 quarterbacks in 1 year, and they still almost made it to the mountaintop. But Corey says, I love you, Brad, but that take is too homer for me. All good. Again, I love you too, Corey. And hey, I love my San Francisco 49ers. But at the end of the day, I have seen what the San Francisco 49ers have been able to do. And I still believe that with a quality defense, quality skill positions, and a player at the quarterback position who just executes Kyle Shanahan's scheme, the 49ers can do a lot of damage in that. And again, we don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree, and that is okay. And at the end of the day, though, I do think the San Francisco 49ers would benefit 100% from a superstar quarterback. Who wouldn't? I think the point is, how difficult is it to find a superstar quarterback? Do they grow on trees? Have the San Francisco 49ers passed on superstar quarterbacks in the past? Of course they have. This is the reason why we're 3 years nonstop talking about the quarterback is because we haven't been able to find that guy. And we're still searching high and low, and we can't seemingly find something to stick. So that's the thing. It's like, yes, of course, a superstar quarterback is the difference maker for the San Francisco 49ers to win a Super Bowl. But I also have seen 3 instances in the last 4 years where I've seen fans complaining up and down about Jimmy Garoppolo, and that guy went to 2 NFC Championship games, 1 Super Bowl, outperformed Patrick Mahomes in the first half, fell apart in the second half, and the rest is history. So I understand how you feel, and I understand how I feel. I still believe you get a top 1 defensive line, potato could win you a Super Bowl in Kyle's scheme. I do. I believe that. I've said that for years. That's why out of any team, the San Francisco 49ers are set up to have a system quarterback. If the system quarterback executes the system and plays within scheme and is on time and on target, reads progressions, takes care of the football, you have a defense like the San Francisco 49ers, you have skill positions like the San Francisco 49ers. It is what it is. Jam says, sorry, bud, but the system quarterback's not it. Again, we all want superstar quarterbacks. Tell me one person who doesn't want a superstar quarterback. We're arguing about something that is a moot point. Every single fan of every single team wants a superstar quarterback. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, can the San Francisco 49ers find success without a superstar quarterback? And I agree they can. I agree the San Francisco 49ers can find success with a quarterback who can execute the scheme on point with a number 1 defense and number 1 skill positions. Do I want a superstar quarterback? You better bet your bottom dollar I want a superstar quarterback. You think I didn't want Deshaun Watson in 2017? You think I didn't want Patrick Mahomes? Those guys, remember, I called them demigods coming out of the draft. I knew how good both those guys were. I wanted both those guys. I wanted Deshaun. Deshaun was like my guy. Like, I followed Deshaun's career all the way throughout Clemson. I love Deshaun Watson coming out. Patrick Mahomes, I was a believer in Patrick Mahomes. Demigods. That's what I called them. Did the 49ers pick either of them? No, they didn't. What are we arguing about? Justin says, I feel like if they can hit on one elite D line in this draft, this D line will be better than 2019, but for years to come, that will make us a dynasty. And I do think that there are a lot of ways to win in this league, kind of like what Justin says. Is the number one thought process get a superstar quarterback and let everything fall into place? Of course. But there are other ways. There are other ways. Not saying that that's how you should move. You should always be trying to find the superstar quarterback. That's what you should be striving for, which is what the San Francisco 49ers did by trading all that capital to move up to 3 and get Trey Lance. That's what they thought they were doing. But it doesn't feel like it was the right fit. So they have to pivot. So just because Trey Lance didn't work out doesn't mean they aren't trying to do that. So that's what this whole like conversation about like the 49ers have to have us. Of course, they're trying. They've struck out. They haven't found success doing that. The San Francisco 49ers have had the least amount of success right now with kind of what feels like identifying that superstar because they were right in front of them in that 2017 draft. So, but there are also other ways. Again, we talk about quarterback wins, like wins isn't a quarterback stat, right? Do you believe wins is a quarterback stat, or do you believe that's a team stat? At the end of the day, the 49ers are trying to win football games. And so what they have done is they have put their value into the best linebacker in football. They're going to put it into the best defensive end in football in Nick Bosa, the best tight end, the best left tackle, the best fullback, the best running back, the best offensive weapon. They have put their money into those guys, which allows them to be able to have a different process at quarterback. It allows them to go after a rookie and try to insulate a rookie with as much talent. Now, would ideally Trey Lance have turned into Patrick Mahomes? And we are sitting here today talking about Trey Lance taking the Jalen Hurts jump in year 3? Of course. Of course. You would be ridiculous to not think that that's what the 49ers should want. We should all want that. But what we are dealing with is the reality of that not coming to fruition. That's where we're at. It didn't come to fruition. It's not coming to fruition. And by the day that continues to progress, it feels like the 49ers are moving further and further away. Fine. That doesn't mean that the 49ers can't win without a superstar quarterback. It makes it infinitely harder, but they can do it. I believe both things can be true. Justin says, oh, wait, I already talked about that. And I agree. This D-line, I've been on this for years. I saw it in 2019. The 49ers didn't have a superstar quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo when they went 13-3. What were Jimmy's stats in the playoffs? And again, we don't have to bring it up. We know the 49ers were close. Close doesn't cut it, though. And I understand that. And they ultimately got taken down by a superstar quarterback. But at the end of the day, a lot of things happened differently in that game. And we already had our 6th ring. But we don't. So we got to live with that. And the 49ers have definitely a specific way about how they're going about this process. So it'll be interesting to see. Evoke says Purdy is not that bad as this talk makes him look like. Yeah, I don't think Purdy's bad at all. Purdy's the best quarterback that the San Francisco 49ers have had in the past 6 years. That includes Trey Lance. That includes Jimmy Garoppolo. That includes Nick Mullins. That includes Nate Sudfeld. That includes former top 10 pick Josh Rosen. Brock Purdy is the best quarterback that we have seen under center for the San Francisco 49ers in 6 years. That's just facts. There's no bias. That's not being a homer. That's just facts. Watch the tape. It's just facts. So that's how the 49ers are moving. And that's what we got to see. We saw it from Brock. We still haven't seen it from Trey. And I don't know if we are going to see it from Trey. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this ultimately pans out. But enough of me ranting and raving about this entire situation. What do you guys think? Will Trey Lance, poll time, get ready, get your fingertips ready, whether you're your thumbs or you're on your keyboard. It's time to poll y'all. Do you think that Trey Lance will get traded prior to the draft? Do you think that will be the case? Let me know in the comment below. Let me know in the comments below. Will Trey Lance be traded in the coming days leading up to the draft or on draft day? Let's see what the chat's talking about. Let's see what the chat is talking about. First of all, before we get into this, shout out my wifey for spending 10 years of her life married to this ginger beard. Today is our 10-year anniversary. Obviously, Trey Lance has taken over, but I just got to shout out wifey. Before we get to your guys' comments, as you guys continue to get in, if you think Trey Lance is going to be traded or not, just got to shout out wifey, man. Shout out wifey. 10 years together, a decade with the wife today. 419. Let's go. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine a human being like deciding to spend 10 years with this? Give her a round of applause. That is phenomenal. 10 years with this ginger beard. Whoo! Amazing. Amazing. Hey, shout out to my guy getting married in August. Let's go. Congrats, dude. Congrats. Appreciate everyone. Appreciate all that. But yeah, man. 10 years together. Time flies when you're having fun. All right, let's get into some of your takes about Trey Lance being traded. Will he be traded by the deadline? First one that came in says gone. Thumbs down. I'm assuming no, he won't be traded. Gerald says no. Sam says no, but deserves a better, more loving home. Yeah. Jesse says yes. No, he won't be traded. This guy says no. Yes. Zero chance. Makes absolutely zero sense. I wouldn't say 0% sense. I could see it happening. How would we know? I don't know. This is why it's a guess. We're asking. Suave says no. Yes. Nope. No way. But he should be. Most definitely. This is a strong take. Either yes, Ness, or yo. I see what you did there. So Man, it's gonna be interesting to say the least, for all this stuff, man. Um, so my take is I still don't know if he's gonna be traded because I feel like you only trade Trey Lance if you get good value. Um, if you're not getting good value, then that makes it harder. You know what I mean? It makes it harder to trade Trey, um, in my opinion, because again, I'm not privy to what is going on inside those building walls. But if there's any doubt from the 49ers that Trey Lance is the future, then it makes sense why they are discussing it, why they are fielding calls, why they are potentially, you know, going through the motions of, is this something that could work for us? Could we find value elsewhere by taking a guy that might not be the starter next year? So I don't know if it actually happens, but what I would say is I do believe the 49ers aren't sure about Trey. I'll say that. I'll say I'll say I don't know if he actually gets traded, but the way that it feels is that for a guy that you traded and leveraged the future of your franchise to go and get, I mean, this feels just like a big lack of confidence in Trey. It doesn't feel like they think Trey will be the guy. So, does that mean he gets traded? I don't know. That there's it takes two to tango. Again, they need the right value and they need someone to want him at that point. So again, there's been conversations about, maybe the Minnesota Vikings. Let's talk about potential destinations of like who who would go after Trey hypothetically. Like we've already heard the rumors that the Minnesota Vikings have discussed him. Um we know that the Indianapolis Colts had him very high on their draft board when he came out. The Texans could be an option as well because it doesn't sound like the Texans are ultra convicted on any of these quarterbacks outside of, Bryce. So, do the Bucks throw their hat into the ring? Because right now they have Trask and Baker Mayfield. Jets potentially if they don't land uh, Aaron Rodgers. But that would be wild for the Jets, man. The Jets go from Zach Wilson to Trey Lance. What if Trey Lance doesn't work out in New York? I mean, man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the Jets. I think the Jets are in a position where they're like, we can't go on an unknown. We got to go for someone that is proven. Dallas, doubt it. Commanders, potentially. Uh, they brought in Jacoby Brissett. They signed Jacoby Brissett, and they have Sam Howell. Maybe. Um, he should ask for a trade. Well, it's it's he probably isn't. I don't know. It might be something that they both agree on. Like, yeah, it's time. It's time to potentially find suitors elsewhere. I don't know. But I mean, it is a fascinating scenario with and this is how it always is, guys. Like that's why we call it smoke season. That's why we call ourselves the smoke chasers. That's why we have it's why it's why this thing exists and has provided so much protection over the situation. Smoke season, man. You have to be able to read between the lines. You have to have a baseline of connecting dots and you have to be able to read between the lines. These aren't singular situations. It's a connected timeline that you have to place these events to be able to kind of understand where they're at. So, it's a wild situation, man. It is wild. Uh, it's wild. Shout out wifey. Lifey loves the hat. Shout out wifey. Uh, Justin says he may have already asked for a trade if he took the Niners out of his Instagram. Isn't that what Debo did? And we didn't hear about it until later. Um, yeah. So it's going to be interesting, man. Basic so we've talked about all the nuances, right? What's the way my brain works is I work through the ranges of outcomes, and if I had to give an opinion, I would say there's a range of outcome where Trey does get traded. Do I think it's the best idea? No, I don't. I don't think it's the best idea to trade Trey. For the optics, number one, because again, I keep coming back to, well, what happens if you just stayed at 12? Or you stayed at 12 and you watched the draft. I mean, Trey was probably going top 4 regardless of the trade out. So Trey wouldn't have been an option. Mac Jones would have gotten into his Mac Jones stuff, would have fell as well. But you had other guys available. You had Rashawn Slater, who had guard tackle versatility. So you could have played him at guard and then kicked him out to tackle when McGlinchey was up, and you would have been set for life with having Trent Williams and mini Trent Williams and Rashawn Slater. And then, or you could have took Micah Parsons at 12, and you could have had the best edge rushing duo of all time with not all time, but up there with Bosa and Parsons. Fields fell. You could have went up and snatched Fields, but by all accounts, they didn't like Fields for whatever reason. What's going to make this Trey Lance again for me personally, what's going to make this Trey Lance situation worse if it doesn't work out is if Justin Fields takes that Jalen Hurts jump. If Trey Lance, or excuse me, if Justin Fields is being talked about as a top 10 quarterback at the end of this year, I'm going to be sick. Just for my own personal reasons, because I really like Justin Fields. And I think he's a capable quarterback. And I think he'll improve. I think he'll continue to improve. But, and it just makes it hard because that's what we want. That's what it comes down to. I was okay with a 3-year plan at quarterback. I was okay with that 3-year developmental plan. That's what I wanted. I wanted the Josh Allen. I wanted the Jalen Hurts. I wanted that. I wanted someone that could play quarterback that had elite traits, elite physical tools, commanded 11-on-11 football, and then could develop within the scheme over 3 years. I didn't expect Trey Lance to be amazing year 1. I thought he would have been capable. I thought he would have been able to kind of move the ship along. Then year 2 takes a jump, right? Still working through the process of being an NFL quarterback. And then year 3, that is where you get your first crack at what your quarterback could be for the future. But unfortunately, we're heading into year 3, and Trey Lance has only 4 starts under his belt, and that is hugely due to injury. That's really what it comes down to. It really comes down to injury. So right now, it doesn't feel like we're going to get that. It doesn't feel like that is going to be afforded to us as fans. Because again, there's so much uncertainty right now around Trey Lance, and the fact that you have this carefully worded report come out from Ian Rapaport about them taking Coles, kind of, conditioning us to the idea that Trey Lance could be traded. And preparing us and kind of letting us in on, hey, we're getting calls on Trey Lance. We get Kyle and John said, hey, they're always going to go back to this. If someone called on Kyle or called on John, we would trade each other if the offer was good enough. So they're telling us, anyone is available if the offer is good enough. So will they get that offer? That's the question. Is I think we can all rationalize that the San Francisco 49ers would trade Trey Lance. Let's poll the chat again. Let's ask this question. If the 49ers got a deal, a trade compensation, whether that's a high second, a late first, multiple seconds, a second and a third, something where they felt comfortable getting that return, and they got that offer, do you think they trade him? Drop it in the comments below. Do you think they trade him in that instance where they actually get something that they feel comfortable with? Or do they get that deal and they say, no, we're not trading Trey Lance? Or they get that deal and they're like, okay, it's time. It's time to do it. What do you think they do? What do you think they do? It feels like they would. That's what it feels like. That's what my big old gut is telling me. If they got a deal that they deemed worthy, they would trade him. That's what it feels like. So, at least to me. So that to me is enough to put me on alert, to just be prepared, because we know maybe a team, every team is looking for a quarterback. We know that. And we again, what this process should also be a reminder about is that it's very hard to find a quarterback. It's very hard. They took a guy at the top of the draft and the end of the draft, and the guy at the end of the draft performed better than the guy at the top of the draft. Evaluating quarterbacks is an imperfect science. Zach Wilson was supposed to be that guy. He is not that guy at all. Mitchell Trubisky was taken before Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. Drafting quarterbacks is not a perfect science. And the 49ers have proven that just alone with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, and just the severe spectrums in which they were taken and where the team is feeling about both at the current time. So okay. Brad, question for you. If we got a top 35 pick for Trey, who am I taking? I am again on if this is the scenario and the San Francisco 49ers get a top 35 pick and they were offered that, I think they take that. I do. I think they take that. With everything that they've kind of addressed the situation about, like I think they take that. If someone gives them pick 33, yes, they say, all right, let's do it. Fresh start, clean start. And we can go potentially get a day one starter right here at pick 33. I'm looking at again, how do I make this defensive line better? How do I continue to make this defensive line the best defensive line in all of football? And because of that, that's where like if you get me a Timmy McDonald out of Iowa State, who is a supremely talented pass rusher, and you can put him on the opposite side of Nick Bosa, like I would be looking at that. I would be looking at a scenario where I'm still trying to improve uh improve my defensive line. But if let's say for example you could also get a tackle. And I know Justin's dream would be fascinating if Kalia Kancey fell out. He's been mocked in the top 10, but let's say he falls to like pick 33 and he's sitting there on the board. And I've already have this kind of like premonition that Eric Armstead could be moving back to edge or more of a hybrid edge role. But you get Kancey next to Hargrave in between Bosa and your big end is Eric Armstead. That would be the most disgusting defensive line in football if you got him that low. I don't know. He's ranked number 27th right now on Daniel Jeremiah's prospect ranking. And we know position versatility is going to, or position, not versatility, positional value is going to play a part into this if he actually makes it there. But like Justin talked about, BJ Ojulari. I mean, he's I think the cousin. He's somehow related to what's his name? The other Ojulari on the New York Giants. The guy that I really liked coming out. He is a pass rush specialist. He's got all the moves. He's got an entire bag. And you get a guy like that, Aziz, thank you. I don't know why the hell I blanked on his name. He's one of my favorite prospects coming out. Aziz Ojulari, they're related. So it's in his blood. Pass rushing is in his blood. Could definitely be a guy for the San Francisco 49ers. Maybe they get a Cody Mauch. They go NDSU and they get Cody Mauch there. Maybe they take a shot at, you know, I don't know if they would go corner that early. I know they wouldn't go running back. But yeah, for me, and again, this tight end class is so deep. I saw someone talk about tight end. I think Jesse said Mayer. I'm not going tight end because this tight end class is so deep. I can recoup value from tight end in the third round. So I'm not going to personally reach for, I wouldn't say reaching because there's the fact that there's a lot of good tight ends, I would push tight end back and I would go tight end in the third. And I would use this high draft pick for a position that is very high. So D-line, O-line. Those are the top two that I'm looking at. D-line, O-line. That's where I'm at. So I see people in the chat saying Foskey. out of Notre Dame. He could be an option. Will McDonald, BJ Ojolari, um, Keon White is around that, but Keon isn't a prototypical pass rusher, in my opinion. He's still a little raw. So I don't know if he would be. The 49ers already have kind of a raw prospect right now in Drake Jackson. So I would go for someone who's a little bit more refined. Um, I don't know. Does Miles Murphy fall that far? I don't know. So I'm thinking from a positional value standpoint, got to stick with the trenches, man. Got to continue to build offensive line and defensive line to again insulate the unknowns of the quarterback position. Football is won on the line of scrimmage, and that's how this team is built. This team is built to win on the line of scrimmage, especially on the defensive side of the football. So that's the route that I would be going. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting because I still think Trey Lance would be ranked above Herndon Hooker. Herndon Hooker's the 44th ranked prospect on Daniel Jeremiah's list. So, what value does Trey hold? I think that's the real question. Coming off injury, coming off only four career starts in the last 2 years. He's had multiple injuries that has affected his availability. What is his value? How do teams value Trey right now? What is the value of Trey? Uh, you know what I'm saying? So it is interesting. It is interesting. Oh boy. What a time to be alive. Do you guys have quarterback fatigue yet? You guys over this yet? I was not expecting to wake up today to that. Be perfectly honest. Was not expecting to wake up to that report from Rap Sheet. I feel like it's not a surprise on one hand, but again, I still wasn't expecting it. So the one thing that a Trey Lance trade would do for the fan base is give us clarity. I know it wouldn't bring the best response from everyone, but it would bring clarity. We would have our answer. And Mayoko just put out an article that says the title of the article is Why 49ers Like Lance But Haven't Been Shy About Trade Talks. It's from Mayoko. Mayoko's plugged. Yeah. So this situation is fascinating. It's ongoing. I mean, we talked about this in so many different ways. It's just crazy, man. And again, I don't think the 49ers are here to trade Trey Lance for anyone. They need value. But I also do think the 49ers have made it clear that he is available. Like even with John Lynch saying, we like Trey on our team right now. You didn't have to say right now. You didn't have to say that. You just said we like Trey on our team. Don't say right now because that alludes to maybe not so much in the future. So, man, wild times, right? Wild times with the San Francisco 49ers. Ooh. Oh boy. Oh boy. I wonder what we're gonna be talking about all the way up until the draft, huh? Do you think it's gonna be quarterbacks? Do you think so? Do you think so? Um anyways, we'll definitely have plenty more to talk about in the everlasting world of 49ers quarterback discourse. I would say that if the 49ers did trade him, it would bring my mind a little bit of peace because we'd know we'd have our answer. We would have our answer. And we would be ready to go. So wild times, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't have quarterback fatigue yet, oh, you got quarterback fatigue now. Because it's probably going to be the only thing that is going to be discussed now from here on until the draft. So it's going to be wild. And I was so excited about just talking about draft prospects too. But at the end of the day, maybe we'll have some clarity by the NFL draft, whether Trey's here or not here. We'll have some clarity. So we'll find out, man. We will find out what is in store for the San Francisco 49ers moving forward. It'll be interesting to see what offers that they get for them or for Trey, but all the signs are pointing to something happening. Something's happening. So we'll find out. You guys got any last questions that you want to fire off before we get out of here on this wonderful Wednesday? Talking about Trey Lance getting traded. My goodness. My goodness. What a time to be alive. Right now, man. Crazy, crazy stuff. Let's see. Quarterback PTSD. No, go Warriors. But we'll be back. We'll have plenty to talk about for time to come, as you already know. Shout out to everyone tapping in. Smash that like button if you haven't already. And make sure you got post notifications on because if stuff's going down, we're going live to talk about it all. But again, at the end of the day, this whole situation isn't going to be met with a positive outcome because ultimately at the end of the day, it's gonna go down to missing on Trey Lance. If they trade him, that's what it is. So we got to be prepared. Appreciate everyone wishing me a happy anniversary. That means a lot. Shout out to the whole SDS. And yes, 8 days until we get some clarity. But appreciate you all. I'm out of here for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to